everyone, welcome back to Drawn by Annie channel. This is me, Annie, and I will be drawing for you today. Grab your tea, coffee and snacks and let's dive into today's video. So, how you've been lately? How's your week? How's your weekend? We have had an internet disruption in my community, and honestly it's been such a nice time because I started to see people go outside and meet each other. Like, I went on a walk in the evening to enjoy some coolness of the weather in the evening, and I met my neighbor who was riding a bicycle, and apparently she said she doesn't know how to ride a bike, like a bicycle with two wheels. So she had like a tricycle, you know, with the basket on the back. So I'm like, wow, that's such a cool bike, because I have a bicycle myself, but for grocery shopping it would be so much more easy to use tricycle with the basket like that, because when I use my bicycle I usually wear my sports bag in the back, so all the groceries go on my own bag, and when I come back it's a bit heavy at times. Sometimes it's not as heavy as much, but and then we had like a nice and sweet conversation, and then her brothers came and we went back to our apartments, but it was like a nice, refreshing, sweet talk. I don't have a chance to meet my neighbors much because this is like the country. Yeah, in this country everybody is so busy, they don't have time for each other. They're just trying to, you know, work and earn money and survive. Oftentimes people forget that we have to speak to each other to not go insane. At least that applies to me, but yeah, that's kind of it. A little update from me. So today I want to explore little differences in different styles for the faces, for the animation or like a comic characters. So I decided to give like myself a challenge and see how different I can draw one character with different faces, or like how different facial features would affect the whole vibe of the character. I'm taking my second persona character Sylvia for this little exploration experiment. This was the character that I actually made to represent myself. Like, you remember how I talked about the other OC in my previous video, Ginger?
If you haven't, go check out previous video on my channel.
Ginger has her own background and her special abilities and stuff like that, so she's kinda a character that could belong to a story, but there's just no story behind it because I haven't written it or like haven't drawn any comic with her. But I used her as my persona / avatar character in the internet in the past, but then later on there was just so much differences in me as a person and the character that represents me that she kinda became like independent character of herself without having to introduce me as an artist. And this character Sylvia, I made her exactly for the purpose to represent me. So it's me, but with different appearance. So I made like an outfit, I made a look, maybe a little bit fun with imaginary abilities, because like I thought that Sylvia persona would be like magical girl type, and I wanted to give her a little bit of goth lolly look with her clothing and outfit. So it's like my inner magical girl character, you know. So yeah, with each portrait I'm going to explore how different facial feature proportion change can affect like the overall vibe for Sylvia. So I'm starting up with the first one that has like exaggerated eyes and chubbier lips and nose. Firstly, I'm putting most of the effort into eye details, so I have like big pupils and nice lashes and everything. Then I'm also going to make the lips a little bit more on a chubbier side, like, you know, like a doll. So she kind of looks a little bit like a doll, you know, the ones that are very popular in Asia. They are very cute. I wanted her to have this like childish look a little bit here, because sometimes that's how I feel, even though I'm in my 30s, but who cares? My inner child is still there and lives their happy life. So yeah, this is the most, I think it will be the most childish look for Sylvia. And as for the hair and her ears, she has like elven ears. I make them more pointy, and hairstyle I'm not going to change much, but I'm going to change a little bit the line work on the strokes, so it will have like a more rounded look. And as for the hair, I'm going to keep like a one shape for the whole thing. I'm not gonna differentiate like extra hairs here and there like I usually do, so I'm just keeping a more simpler shape for her hairstyle in this one. And for the nose, I'm just keeping her nostrils visible and a little bit of a nose tip, which kind of connects to one of the nostrils. That's how I usually draw noses for my anime characters. And also here I'm avoiding too much details on the hair and the nose bridge. You know how I draw extra lines underneath and around the eyes and also on the nose bridge. So here I'm going to keep like a simpler look for this one. So for the second face, I am going to make her look more mature, if that makes sense. So I'm starting out with more of like anatomically correct shapes for a human face. So I'm making her face like a little bit bigger, and her jawline is also a bit bigger as well. So I'm keeping in mind that usually you guys, you know, you have like these bones in your jaw that are pretty visible. So when usually you're drawing anime, you're kind of making it smaller for like a softer look. So here I want it to look more realistic, let's say. So I'm giving her more masculine jawline, if that makes sense. Then I'm making her eyes slightly smaller, and her lips also have more details. And I also make more differentiated nose bridge and also defining the nostrils as well as a nose tip. Yeah, later on this is going to be on a more realistic side, so I'm going to give more details with colors as well and maybe more realistic shades. Same goes for her hairstyle, so I'm keeping it mostly the same way as the first one. I'm not differentiating too much different hairs, and I'm keeping it in one simple shape. Well, of course, I give some of the differentiated hairs on her bangs because that's kind of part of her character design, so that's the only thing. But that's what I'm gonna keep with every style that I'm going to try and explore today. So yeah, number 2 is going to be more on a realistic side, even though her eyes are still like bigger than I would usually draw for a semi-realistic character, but that's how I see myself. Like, my eyes are the biggest part of my face, so whatever style I'm going to choose to represent myself, like a selfie character or a persona character, no matter what, I'm going to make her eyes like bigger because they are the most visible part of my face. So yeah. For number 3, I am going to make her more anime as well, again as like a first one, but for this one I'm just going to try out different eye, nose, lips proportions. So I'm going to have like her eyes also big enough like to make her look anime-ish, but I'm going to make different facial proportions. So I'm going to make her face wider, and I'm going to make her eye shape a little bit different this time. And I also want to make a little bit different nose, maybe less detailed on the nostrils and nose bridge, but a little more detailed around the eyes. You know, these lines that I mentioned in the first one, I want to add them back here. That's what I'm also keeping in my mind. I add some details to her lips, but not too much. I make this little line under the lip. I also make her eyes like more farther from each other, if that makes sense. I'm also going again back to more pointiness to her ears, as well as more triangular shape to her hair, I guess. I don't know, it just comes out from my intuition, so I just go with gut here. And for the bangs and hair accessory, everything goes the same, so I'm adding the same hairs on her bangs, and I'm adding back the ribbon. For this one, I think I'm going to give more stylization to the hair. I'm going to give more different strokes, maybe more messier look. So I wanted to look more artistic and messy artistic, or artistic messy. So yeah, this one is going to look a little bit more like your typical anime, I guess. And I think that actually looks more like my usual style than the first one. I thought that first one would be like more usual for Sylvia, but this one I kind of like how her face looks a little different from the first one, but still has this little childish and kind vibe. But she also looks a little bit older here. So like first one looks more like a younger version, and then third one that I'm making right now is looking more like 5 years later, you know. So she's a little bit older than the first one, but younger than the third one. Third one's like full mature Sylvia. For the fourth attempt, I am going to kind of work on the third option, but with some extra steps, I guess, or like change a little bit eyes shape and pupil shape and add more lashes. And I'm also making it a little bit of a different angle, so it's not forward looking. She's like 3/4 look, so you can kind of see more how her nose is shaped a little bit different. And I'm also looking to add more details to the nose again, like I'm going to make more specific shape of the nose and nostrils, but I'm still going with somewhat detailed lips like the first and third one. So I'm having like a third shape, like a little bit wider lips, but less chubby, so she doesn't look as much as doll anymore as the first one, for example. So I'm looking to see how pupil shape changes her face look, and I'm also making her ears a little bit bigger here and less pointy but more rounder, like the strokes, like they look a little bit more rounder than the first one. So I'm going back and forth with trying to achieve the correct angle and also see how much I want this nose to be detailed, and then I'm looking to put it on a different height. So I'm trying out a little bit lower and a little bit higher. Then I'm going with some eyebrows and trying to find the correct location for her mouth. So at first she looks like a little bit flatter, like a lot of elven girls look in anime. So for fourth attempt I wanted to give her more like typical elven anime look, because for some reason the animes that I watched, all elves in anime, they look like they're flat faced. I kind of wanted to try and replicate this face shape here, so I'm going with more chubbier ears here. You can see how they're more thick than the first 3 attempts. I also had to go a little bit for zoom in because I'm lacking space on the paper already here, so I'm just filling in the gap as much as I can, and I'm adding a little bit more details to the eyes and nose bridge here as well, like my usual style. Even more detailed than my usual, to be honest, because usually I just have a few lines here and there, and here I'm adding more lines around the nose bridge and in the corners of the eyes, the inner corners. After that I wanted to try out a little bit practice of the eye, like I wanted it to be maybe more cleaner here, or have like a little bit extra practice for the eyes, and maybe try and replicate the same eye on the face after I'm done with sketching and during the line phase. A little extra eye practice here. And for the 5th attempt, I'm kind of revising all of the styles here, and I wanted to make another more semi-realistic look, more something like attempt number 2, but I wanted to see like a chubbier lips here and also a little bit mature look. So her face shape is more like a doll. She has like this longer jaw, and her chin is a little bit wider and longer as well, and I'm making her lips look really big and inflated with these shadows. And I wanted to give her a little bit smaller eyes here as well, and see if I can achieve more of a realistic look, and also adding more details to her nose and kind of defining not only the nostril, the darkest part of the nostril, but also a little bit outer part of the nostril as well. I usually don't do that, but I wanted to give it a go and try and see what will happen. And for the hair, I'm also having a simpler shape even more simple than all the other attempts. I'm only giving her the bangs, and the rest of the hair is just simple shape with simple shading. And before finishing, I'm just making another attempt of nose practice in the little gaps in between the faces, just to see maybe I can improve something, or maybe have this as a reference for the coloring part or like lining part. Here I'm making like more detailed nose, and then a little bit more simplified like in anime, but still having a shadow detail and also a little bit definition to the nostrils. So yeah, that's pretty much all of my exploration, and in the next video I'm going to make a line art and also explore some of the variations for the line art, and I'm also going to try out some different coloring techniques and maybe see how the order of landing colors will affect the overall look, even though I'm planning to use the same palettes for each of one of them because it's like a same character and I want to keep the color palette consistent, but I am going to explore how different shading, for example, or how order of the colors, how it is affecting the general look, and this one I'm going to do in the next video, so stay tuned for part 2. But for today, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this would be useful for you, and I hope you can also try out exploring different art styles. I highly encourage you to do so because that's not only fun but also very, very useful, and it will improve your art skill in general. But yeah, tell me in the comments which one do you prefer most for Sylvia? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And I hope I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.